This one's wife. Buttering up the Queen. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Buttering somebody up is a manipulation that is used by some narcissists. Certain narcissists expect you to fall into line because, well, you're dealing with a personification of absolute brilliance, and you ought to recognize that from the off. Other narcissists will use flattery, being somewhat obsequious, to butter up to you, complimenting you excessively, demonstrating that they think the world of you, praising certain attributes of yours, spending time with you. This is all part of the golden period, whereby the narcissist appears like an individual that cares about you, wants to spend time with you, enjoys being around you. Mirroring takes place during this, whereby the narcissist demonstrates an interest in the things that interest you. They may start to mimic the way that you dress, the things that you say. It will also be the case that the narcissist may well pour scorn on certain things that you don't like also, thus replicating your likes and dislikes, all part of this process of buttering you up. Some narcissists do it with considerable subtlety, so that you wouldn't realize that the individual is actually manipulating you. Others are more obvious about it, over the top with the nature of their compliments, and that they're used excessively in terms of repetition. Often individuals spot this. They see the red flag. They realize that it's nice to be complimented, but the things that are being said about them don't really ring true. For instance, you know that you're reasonably good looking, but you wouldn't really describe yourself as heart attack beautiful, for instance. And for the narcissist to describe you as such seems over the top. The fact that the narcissist might keep saying, I really can't believe that someone like you would choose someone like me, again and again, putting you on that pedestal. You recognize that, yes, there are aspects about you that make for a good relationship, but you also are grounded enough to realize there are plenty of other people that would tick those boxes. You're hardly unique. But of course, in the mind of the narcissist, because of the idealization that is driven by the narcissism, you are the mirror in which the narcissist sees themselves, and therefore you are placed upon that pedestal. You are idealized, for you represent everything about the narcissist that is wonderful. They are living through you. In order to get that control over you, the buttering up must continue. Now, not all narcissists will butter you up. Some, as I mentioned, rely more upon their intrinsic magnetism and ability for you to fall into line. There is that haughty expectation for that to be the case. But the buttering up is often seen amongst mid-rangers. And according to an article written by Jack Royston, a pro-Sussex writer in Newsweek, he commences with the headline, "This one's wife knew how to butter up the Queen." Now, as we know, this one's wife is a narcissist. You also know from what I've just described there, and perhaps your own experiences, that narcissists certainly will butter individuals up. Is it the case that this one's wife did so, and did she do so knowingly, or was it simply an instinctive action on her part? This one's wife knew exactly how to butter up Queen Elizabeth II, and would regularly call her, hoovering, unlike the monarch's children, according to a royal biographer. Now, if that is accurate, this one's wife's facade of being a decent person to the outside world also translates into a veneer when she's dealing with people on a one-on-one. Her narcissism will have detected that there was a failure, perhaps, by the monarch's children to engage with her through telephone, and therefore she took advantage of this in order to portray herself in a good light, and also to enable her to assert control over the Queen, draw fuel from her. Ingrid Seward's new book, My Mother and I, charts King Charles III's relationship with his mother, but also made waves when it came out in February, with its account of how Queen Elizabeth II felt this one's wife's wedding dress was too white. However, it also painted a picture of a monarch who liked her American granddaughter-in-law, despite the rift between the Sussexes and the palace. I suspect that that was just the Queen being polite, that she recognised from an early juncture, as the Queen has been around many characters of a similar ilk to this one's wife, to realise that there was something unpleasant about her. She, of course, would have given her the benefit of the doubt for the sake of her grandson. She would also, for the sake of appearances, ensure that she would be decent to her, in order to enable everybody to get along. The Queen was no fool. As a normal, she did not experience the emotional thinking of the empath, and instead would not only be able to see more clearly, but also, because of the various experience of being around narcissists, even though she might not necessarily know them to be narcissists, she would see the behaviours, and in a way, her spidey sense would tell her, this is a wrong 'un. Accordingly, she may well have created the appearance of liking this one's wife in the beginning, but she recognised what she was about. Seward told Newsweek, I was so surprised when I heard the Queen liked this one's wife, but she did. This one's wife's a smart lady, whatever people think of her. Actually, she's not. She's not academically bright, but what she does have, of course, is that instinctive manipulative ability that the narcissist has in order to engage with people, albeit with her. It operates on a localized level very effectively, but put her on a much larger scale, and as we have seen repeatedly, it isn't up to the job. Seward continues, she knew exactly how to butter up the Queen. Even Harry gave us a little glimpse of it by the dogs. Prince Harry told this one's wife during their engagement interview in November 2017 that the corgis took to you straight away, while the Duchess added they were just laying on my feet during tea. It was very sweet. Naturally, of course, humans and animals are there to fall in love with this one's wife because she is so lovable. Maybe she had a few treats in her handbag for them, Seward said. Harry actually said this one's wife was a great hit with the dogs. They always yap at him, but they were all over this one's wife. I don't think the Queen actually saw very much of them. This one's wife, being American, used to ring her up, which a lot of her children don't do. It's more likely that her children go to see her. But of course, in the case of this one's wife, if she can assert control quickly and with less effort by telephoning than attending in person, she would do so. I think she kept in touch with her because she knew it was important, and then she met this one's wife's mother. Doria Ragland was the only member of this one's wife's family at her wedding and met the Queen at the time. Harry and this one's wife also impressed Elizabeth with their roles as president and vice president of her charity, the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. The Queen had these very high hopes for the Commonwealth, Seward said, because remember, the Commonwealth was the Queen's baby. It was so important to her, and she saw them as bringing a bit of modernity and youth into the Commonwealth, and she was right, actually, and they were made ambassadors. When things started to unravel, she was very upset. Eventually, she felt a little bit like we all did. What do they want, this couple? They've got everything, but it's not enough, which, of course, is the typical mindset of the narcissist. They had a new house, they had a new baby, they had a lot of people thinking how wonderful they were, and yet it wasn't enough. It never is, of course, when it comes to the narcissist. Beyond the Sussexes, Seward backed Prince William's recent comments on Israel and Gaza, even though they were a long way from the Queen's more neutral approach to diplomacy. We don't need to go down the line of analysing William's observations. That's off the track in relation to this one's wife. The suggestion is that she knew how to butter up the Queen. She would certainly attempt to do so, because remember, this one's wife, as a middle mid-range narcissist, would portray not only a facade to the outside world of being kind, likeable, philanthropic, empathic, but she would also translate that into her one-on-one interactions, save when, of course, control was threatened, and then the more nasty bullying side would be witnessed. With Queen Elizabeth, her narcissism recognised the status of this non-intimate secondary source and deemed it appropriate to try and bring her under control with benign manipulations, hence the buttering up to her. The Queen needed to be controlled like any other appliance that this one's wife deals with. Fuel would need to be obtained from her, but especially she had considerable residual benefits as a consequence of being the monarch, her wealth, and her influence. And therefore this one's wife would indeed toady up to her in order to gain that control and to access those residual benefits. Of course, it all shows that her buttering up only went so far, in that when she decided to assert control, or rather she did so instinctively by retreating to Canada and then California, her buttering up of the Queen didn't continue thereafter. Instead, her behaviour was one of devaluing the Queen, not necessarily directly, but devaluing the institution that she represented, with behaviours which of course will have caused the Queen much anguish in her twilight years. Thus, the buttering up is quite clearly a manipulation. It wasn't genuine. It wasn't long-lasting, as it never is with the narcissist. It simply serves a purpose to try and bring a person under control in a benign way until such time as that individual then becomes painted black and the buttering up dissipates so much as butter would melt inside a frying pan. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.